in Delhi could not make it possible to be present here today. And therefore, I humbly hold his job and feel privileged to deliver the opening remarks on behalf of the President. I would like to express our profound gratitude to the government of the Republic of Kenya and the people of the Republic of Kenya for hosting 56th annual session of ALCO in this beautiful city of Nairobi, and for the warm hospitality extended to all delegations. Excellencies, I take this opportunity to thank the member states and observers who participated and contributed at the 55th session held in New Delhi and making it a success. I express my sincere gratitude to all member states of ALCO and the Secretary General in extending full cooperation and support during India's presidency. Excellencies, turning to the origin of the organization, since the historic Bandung Conference and its inception, ALCO has unfailingly discharged the mandate of facilitating democratization of the development and codification of international law. The organization's approach has been always practical, then ambitious. ALCO remains a platform to meet the aspirations and expectations of the Asian and African continents. In developing Asian-African approaches to the international law and thereby facilitating its progressive development. It is a matter of pride for my country, India, to be one of the founding members of this organization and hosting the headquarters of the organization. I take this opportunity to congratulate and welcome the Socialist Republic of Vietnam as the new member state of ALCO. Excellencies, I am proud that organization has been active in fulfilling its mandate entrusted to it by the member states. I am confident that the 56th annual session would be an excellent one, like previous sessions, with the cooperation from all member states and observers. Excellencies, continents of Africa and Asia have contributed significantly to the progressive development of modern international law. These continents have been part of the ongoing process of shaping new rules and principles of international law while strengthening existing ones. Some of the important areas worth mentioning are human rights law, including refugee law, humanitarian law, law of the sea, law of treaties, sharing of water courses, etc. In the context of present host country, Kenya's commendable contribution to the growth of ALCO needs to be highlighted. Since becoming a member state of ALCO, Kenya hosted ALCO's annual sessions in 1989 and 2005. The former Secretary General of ALCO, the late Professor Frank Jenga, a distinguished academician from Kenya, served the organization for 2 consecutive terms for the year 1988 to 1994. We are always indebted to his able leadership, which helped ALCO to contribute in the development of various fields of international law. Excellencies, there can be no doubt that if international society is to evolve and grow along rational and peaceful lines, it must do so in accordance with legal principles and rules. Without clear and widely recognized rules of international law, and without strict observance of such rules and of basic principles and norms of international law embodied in the UN Charter, it would be impossible to ensure international cooperation and the peace and security which is necessary to promote the general welfare of all people and nations. The importance of regional organizations in this task cannot be overlooked. Excellencies, in the backdrop of ever-widening canvas of international law, ALCO's relevance for its member states is further reinforced in working with other important international organizations. In this context, it is worth mentioning that ALCO's close cooperation with the United Nations has provided an additional platform for ALCO member states to participate in the interactive dialogue and thereby to contribute to the progressive development of international law. In the same spirit, ALCO follows the work of International Law Commission and deliberates on the important topics under consideration of the Commission at its annual sessions. The establishment of 4 regional arbitration centers in Cairo, Kuala Lumpur, Tehran, and Lagos reflects the approach of ALCO towards alternative dispute resolution system. It is our hope that over time, ALCO would play even greater role in the field of alternative dispute resolution. Excellencies, important topics of contemporary relevance, such as violent extremism and terrorism, the status and treatment of refugees, selected items on the International Law Commission, International Criminal Court, and International Law in Cyberspace are going to be deliberated in the next 4 days. I am confident that these deliberations would contribute in enriching the discussions happening at the United Nations and other multilateral forums. Excellencies, I extend my profound gratitude to the Secretary General of ALCO and his dedicated team for their meticulous efforts in making the activities of ALCO a grand success. Professor Gaston has been proactive in his efforts to fulfill the mandate entrusted on him by the member states since he assumed office in August 2016. Toward this end, he has been in constant touch with the Indian government and has been constantly engaging with other member states to gather their support for ALCO activities. I also assure the full cooperation of the Government of India in facilitating the activities of ALCO. Let me once again wish all delegates and observers attending this session a fruitful week of deliberations and a pleasant stay in Nairobi. Thank you.
Distinguished delegates, it now gives me great pleasure to invite our guest speaker this morning, His Excellency, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, the Honorable William Ruto. Your Excellency.
Thank you very much, Attorney General. Cabinet Secretaries present, the Secretary General of ALCO, the Chairman of this 56th session, distinguished delegates, guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I said good morning. Very good. Thank you very much. On behalf of the President, the people, and the government of Kenya, I wish to welcome all of you from the various countries around the globe, those who are attending this session as members of ALCO, and those who are attending this session as observers and friends. You're all welcome to Kenya. I know you will have a very tight schedule because of the necessity of the arrangements that have been put in place and because of the heavy schedule that you have. But I want to encourage you to find some time and enjoy Nairobi. Nairobi is a great city. In fact, it is the only city in the world that has a national park within 10 minutes drive. You may be lucky to find some lions on the road. Please don't get involved because they are wild. Find some time to enjoy Kenyan tea. It is the very best in the world. Even our friends from India, we imported tea from India, but we improved on it. It's better than what you have in India now. And while you are in Nairobi, I want to remind you that Nairobi and Kenya is home to humanity. Science, and I'm saying this as a scientist myself, science has proven that the very earliest remains of man were found a few kilometers from here. So those of you who've come from Australia and India and Asia and Japan and China and everywhere else, welcome home. This is where we all came from. You're very welcome home. The president was supposed to preside over this function, but unfortunately, because of exigencies of duty, he was not able. But I want to tell you that the people of Kenya warmly welcome all of you. The deliberations you are going to engage in over the next 4 days, focusing on the development of international law, are indeed important, not to this conference only, but to our region and to the world. It is my expectation that no doubt this discussion will benefit not only us, but it will benefit the larger international community. I want to appreciate the founders of ALCO. Indeed, they had a clear vision for our two continents, and they have demonstrated that as developing nations, we can make an impact in the international stage. As policymakers, we know that when we deepen cooperation, our economies benefit immensely, and the world have no choice but to pay attention. I note with satisfaction that Africa and Asia continue to cooperate in various ways, and Kenya can attest that both continents share a vision for a stable and prospering global community. Kenya has partnered with many countries in Asia. China, for example, are working with us on the transformation of our infrastructure. The most notable example is the Standard Gauge Railway, which by June this year, in a month's time, will be commissioned and will be working. A feat that is well ahead of schedule. We've worked with India in the healthcare sector. We've worked with Japan on some of our infrastructure development projects, including our ports. And many other countries, including Korea, in the field of ICT. We have, of course, worked with our partners in the East African community as a region. And that collaboration and working together with our East African partners has enabled us to improve on the ease of movement of persons, the single network area for mobile telephony. And we now have a single tourist visa for the whole of the region, the East African region. That has given us milestones in the cooperation and networking in our region. Let me emphasize, each one of your states represented here continue to play a role in the development of our country. This is in recognition of the fact that when we lift each other, we ensure a success story for both continents. The Asian-African unity embodies what is known as the spirit of Ubuntu. I am because we are. Together we stand. Let us therefore strengthen the bonds of brotherhood and solidarity throughout our region and between our continents. Let us ensure that our voice is heard and our interests secured in global politics. To the members of the diplomatic corps who have joined us today, and to their colleagues in their capitals, we consider your friendship important to the people of Kenya. Kenyans have always lived in peace with our neighbors and with a national consensus to do good in the world. We appreciate your support, both moral and material. We would wish to take our friendship with you to greater heights of ambition and achievement as we continue to build a prosperous Kenya underpinned by a strong democracy. Distinguished delegates, today, conflict in the developing nations is to a large extent driven by desire of other states to exploit resources. It is incumbent upon us to ensure that the interests of developing nations are protected by a stable and just order. We must ensure that we are champions of global institutions that are grounded in fairness and respect for national sovereignty. I say this informed by Kenya's cases at the International Criminal Court, which I say I'm happy they have ended. But the experience with the ICC gave us cause to observe that these institutions and similar ones oftentimes have become tools of global power politics, and they do not deliver the justice that they were built to dispense. Kenya, therefore, wishes to urge ALCO, member states and partners to ensure that we have greater say, both within and without the international judicial institutions, so that we can remedy and ensure that they serve the purpose for which they were intended and not any other purpose. ALCO continues to play a critical role in the progressive development of international law. We proudly recall the role of ALCO in the development of the law of the sea. ALCO has also contributed through its deliberations in the international human rights regime, the law of treaties, principles concerning extradition of fugitive offenders, principles on the status and treatment of refugees, the model text for bilateral arrangements on mutual assistance in civil matters, and the model agreement for the promotion and protection of investments. We applaud all eminent legal experts from ALCO regions for these great achievements. It is for this reason that I am proud to offer Kenya's Professor Githu Muigai, the Attorney General of the Republic of Kenya, for the post of Judge of the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea. Professor Muigai holds extraordinary experience and distinguished service at the national and international level. During his tenure as Attorney General, he has greatly contributed to the enhancement of the rule of law, a task that has included overseeing the implementation of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, an exercise that had required the enactment of 136 new pieces of legislation. I would also like to introduce Mr. Simon Juguna, who is our candidate for the re-election as a member of the Commission on the Limits of the Continental Shelf. We look forward to the support of your respective countries when the elections are carried out on the 27th meeting of the state parties to the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, which I understand will be held from the 12th to 16th June this year. Ladies and gentlemen, I have taken note that some of the topics this conference will deliberate upon include the legal aspects of violent extremism and terrorism, the status and treatment of refugees, selected items on the agenda of the International Law Commission, including areas on protection of the atmosphere, immunity of state officials from foreign criminal jurisdiction, and fundamental principles of international law. Other issues to be considered include recent developments on the International Criminal Court, international law in cyberspace, and considerations of the work of the ALCO's regional arbitration centers. You will also consider the combating of illegal trade on wild fauna and flora through cooperation under international legal framework, as well as promotion of the rule of law in Asia and Africa. I am satisfied these topics have been carefully selected so that member states continue upholding the spirit of unity under which we committed to continue forging closer African-Asian ties. Ladies and gentlemen, as many of you may already know, illegal trade in wild fauna and flora is a fast-growing international organized crime encompassing a wide range of flora and fauna. It is becoming more sophisticated, driven by rising demand and facilitated by corruption and weak governance across the various supply chains. Estimates from a range of international organizations place the monetary value of all illegal wildlife crime in tens of billions of US dollars annually. With these very disturbing statistics, it is clear that we as legislators, policymakers, judicial authorities, law enforcement agencies, and regulatory authorities, partnering with communities and other non-state actors, need to do more. The strong commitment made at the global level must translate into immediate, decisive, and collective action to narrow the gap between these existing commitments and their implementation. But even as we embark on these obligations, we must do so coherently to fully address the multiple dimensions of these problems. Coordinated efforts are also required to avoid displacing the problem from one country or area to another. Terrorism continues to pose a major threat to international peace and security. In addition to the devastating human cost of terrorism, in terms of lives lost or permanently altered, terrorism acts aim to destabilize governments and undermine the economic and social development of humanity. It is worth noting that addressing this threat is that much more difficult given the complex and constantly evolving nature of terrorist activities. Its motivations, financing, methods of attack, and choice of targets are constantly changing. Terrorist acts often defy national borders. An act of terrorism can involve activities and actors from numerous countries. Given this complexity, the need to share best practice and lessons learned and to assist with the investigations and prosecution of terrorism cases is not debatable. Indeed, strong coordination and cooperation within national governments and between state organizations at the regional and international level is key to effectively combating terrorism. You have an important role to play, ladies and gentlemen, and it is my sincere hope that this conference will take its pride of place in the books of history by adopting resolutions on international legal matters that will transform the lives of our people in Asia and in Africa. In conclusion, I wish to thank the Asia-Africa Legal Consultative Organization Secretariat for ably steering the work of the organization and for ensuring that the interests of the two regions are well articulated in the international fora. We have every confidence in the new Secretary General that he will steer the organization towards achieving greater heights in the general development of international law. I wish you fruitful and successful deliberations in the 4 days of this conference. And I now take this opportunity to declare this 5th annual session of the Africa-Asia Legal Consultative Organization open. Thank you, and once again, welcome to Kenya.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, the Deputy President. Your Excellency, sir, if you may permit me to just invite briefly Director General Shung Hong to give us a brief vote of thanks. Director General.
His Excellency Honorable William Ruto, Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. His Excellency Professor Gito Mugai, Attorney General of the Republic of Kenya. His Excellency Mr. Rajesh Swami, the Deputy High Commissioner of India to Kenya, representing the President of the 55th Annual Session of OCO, His Excellency Dr. Sharma. Secretary General of OCO, Professor Kennedy Gaston, Honorable Ministers, Attorneys General, Heads of Delegations, distinguished delegates, and ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a great honor for me, on behalf of the President of the 54th Annual Session of OCO, His Excellency Mr. Liu Zhenmin, Vice Foreign Minister of China, to propose a vote of thanks at the inaugural session of this 56th Annual Session of OCO. As we all are aware, OCO, as a regional intergovernmental organization, has played a vital role in the Asian-African region in the field of international law ever since its birth in 1956. The annual session of OCO have offered a unique platform to the Asian-African states to articulate their international legal concerns on a wide range of issues flowing from the international legal order. In the process, OCO has emerged as the only intergovernmental organization that brings together two continents of Asia and Africa in the progressive development and codification of international law. OCO now occupies an important position in the international legal community, both as an advisory body to its member states and as an essential mechanism for interregional cooperation and exchange of information and views on matters with an international legal dimension. Since the convening of Bandung Conference, more than half a century has passed, and drastic and profound changes have been taking place in the world. However, the Bandung spirit, which upholds principles of solidarity, friendship, and cooperation, still holds significant importance for Asian and African nations and the international community as a whole. OCO should continue to make great effort to promote Bandung spirit and give it a new meaning in the new era, which has its own challenges, including the daunting tasks of upholding national security and social stability, accelerating economic and social development, as well as improving people's living standards. I would like to extend our wholehearted support and cooperation in advance to the incoming President of the 56th Annual Session of OCO. I'm sure that he will steer the proceedings of the session ably and rise to this intellectual occasion admirably. I would like to thank His Excellency Dr. V.D. Sharma, the President of the 55th Annual Session of OCO and Joint Secretary, Minister of External Affairs, Legal and Treaties Division, Government of India, for performing such a commendable role during the deliberations at the 55th Annual Session held in New Delhi in 2016. My deepest appreciation is due also to the important role played by the Secretary General of OCO, His Excellency Professor Dr. Kennedy Gaston, who has been leading OCO admirably for the past 1 year or so. It is my firm belief that his visionary leadership, aided by the full cooperation of our member states, will enable us to conquer new legal heights in the years to come. Furthermore, the Secretary General and his deputies and the other Secretariat officials should be commended for their untiring efforts in discharging their duties in an effective manner and carrying out the mandates and striving towards the realization of the objectives of OCO. Last but not the least, I would like to thank in advance the honorable ministers, distinguished delegates, and observers for their participation in the forthcoming deliberations, and I hope that this annual session continue in the legacy of past sessions and will try to produce some tangible outcomes for our collective future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Director General. Your Excellency, sir, ladies and gentlemen, let's be upstanding for the national anthem. The heads of delegations will join His Excellency for a photo session. Let's all remain seated as His Excellency lives at his own pleasure. Thank you very much. Kayamba, Africa.
Mic check, mic check, mic check, mic check, mic check, mic check, if you copy. Mic check. Good morning, and if you're just joining us now, this is the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. We're coming to you live from the Kenyatta International Convention Center, where the 56th session has officially been opened by His Excellency William Ruto. It is the 56th annual session of the Asian African Legal Consultative Organization, which is a platform that enables member states to discuss any issues pertaining or of common interest and with legal implications. Kenya is hosting this session for the third time, the last having been in 1988 as well.